Hi, Christina. How are you?
Well, good, thank you.
Welcome, and it's such a pleasure to have you on. I love watching all the stuff that you do and follow what you do because, sharks now, like you say, they used to be villains, didn't they? But they're not now. I think people are becoming more and more aware of them and how important they are. And, I'm sure we'll get onto that. But for those that don't know who you are, that have been living in a box maybe for the last few years and don't know who you are. So you're a shark behaviorist, you're an explorer, you're a conservationist, a PADI course director, a technical dive instructor, a cave diving instructor, an educator. The list goes on. I mean, you've got many hats and you seem to be very good at all of those. But how do you describe yourself?
Well, it's one of the hardest things. So I usually try to tell people that I'm an ocean explorer because the oceans encompasses everything, including the sharks. And then from there, I try to explain how I try to connect my work with the sharks, with the caves. So ocean explorer, cave behaviorist, and a cave dweller.
Yeah. So how did it all start? I know I've read that obviously your dad was in the Italian military and was a diver with them. And he obviously got you into diving, obviously from a young age, I guess.
He got me into the water. He never got me into diving because from his background, diving was an extremely dangerous sport. But he never took me away from the water. So he and my mom always took me to the ocean. What his military background did for me is it provided me with the images, the underwater images, and the stories of the marvels that were on the water, and my desire to then become a scuba diver. In his mind, you have to understand he was in the military in the 1950s. The scuba diving at the level at which he was doing was not really designed for women. It's totally a different generation. It's nothing right or wrong. That's how the society was. It was very male oriented, but it never prevented me from going in the water. So I came up with a very good education towards the power of the water, and like the fact that we do need to respect and understand how powerful and at times dangerous the water is, but also with the beauty and the awe that the water can bring, and the freedom once you understand how water works. So that's how I grew up with. His images, his stories were the inspiration. It's like, I want to do that as well. And he'd be like, no, that's not for girls.
Thing is, I guess it is still a male-dominated sport. That's why what you do and all the things that you do are so inspiring, really, because you're right up there as a leader in scuba diving. So, how old were you when you started scuba diving then?
I was 22 years old.
Oh wow! So a bit later on then.
Yeah, I was 22. I'm 48, so 26 years. But yeah, the thing is, the moment I started, I never stopped. So the moment I came here to Freeport, Grand Bahama, to become a certified diver, I actually decided to come back. And in the beginning, it was a plan to stay for a year and just scuba dive for a year. But within that year, I became a diving professional, and I never stopped. So I never changed from the first dive all the way through. And 20,000 plus dives later, I'm still extremely involved and interested. So it might have been a little bit of a later start, but what I had behind me was years and years since I was 3 years old off the water. So I never had any issues with, mask, the regulator, the water in my eyes. It's just, those were non-existent issues for me. Been always a strong swimmer, passionate free diver. So obviously entering the world of scuba diving was like a matter of receiving the first step, or first certification, and continuing on.
So I guess that was scuba diving was probably a natural progression then, because you grew up also in the Congo in Africa, and obviously got to know the natural environment and the wildlife, and a love and passion for that. I guess scuba diving seemed to be the natural thing to progress to.
Absolutely. I didn't realize how much I really wanted it till the day I remember my boss called me home. She said, "Oh, starting tomorrow, you have a vacation." And at the time I was living in Verona, so it's not really an ocean city. We'd moved back to Italy from Africa. I was a teenager. And the first thing is I'm going to find the location where to become certified. And then 5 choices later that the travel agency did not have available, they said, "Oh, we have this place in the Bahamas." So I came here completely blind, had not done any research like I'd done for my other destinations. And on my first checkout dive, I actually saw sharks in the water. I was like, "You have sharks?" And the reaction of the people was like, "Yeah, of course we have sharks. There's, sharks everywhere on every dive." And that being something that I had wanted to do since I was a kid, it was almost like easy. At 22, I think it should be easy for someone to pick up and go. I think anyone that is 22, 23, 25, we should even do that when we're 40, 45, it becomes harder. But at 20, 22, when people say, "Oh, that was courageous," I'm like, no, I think it should be easy to say, I'm going to stop doing this and I'm just going to try that and see if I like it better. I think the hardest part of what this job has brought, this decision has brought, was not the first step. The hardest part has been through the years to stay through the hardships, to stay through what people don't realize. But the diving industry is a low-income industry, as many people that participate within the show will know, and to stay through the living on an island and the issues that are related that people forget in paradise.
So you got to the Bahamas quite by accident then, really, and then.
Absolutely.
Wow. And now look, and so you haven't left. I mean, this is one of the things I was going to ask, is that, people might think this is kind of an overnight thing, and Cristina Zenato just jumped in the water a couple of years ago, started stroking a few sharks. It's not. In reality, we're talking 25 plus years of lots of dedication, lots of studying, and research of these magnificent creatures. It's not an overnight success, is it?
Correct. I call it the tip of the iceberg. And it's not a 2 years ago or 5 years ago. What happened 2 or 5 years ago, the internet took over. The Instagram was born. So all of a sudden, everybody's like, "Oh, wow." And it's like, "I want to do what you do." Or, "How do I get to where you are?" And they don't realize I started 26 years ago. And as much as I want to inspire people, I try to tell them, say, listen, some of the opportunities that were here 26 years ago are no longer here. However, you have opportunities that I did not have, and you should take advantage of those. And I'll give you an example. My now cave diving teammate, Buddy, who started only 3 years ago, thanks to knowing me and training with me, but he's already a cave explorer on a side mount rebreather. Well, when I started cave diving, there was no official side mount. It was actually frowned upon to teach someone side mount in a cave before they did all the back mount, never mind the rebreather, which looked like a mini fridge. So for him, starting 20 years later, all of a sudden it's like, and there's this technology, this piece of gear, and this available for you. It's like, brilliant. Will he have some of the opportunities that I had, for example, to meet a certain person, to study with someone, to understand something that doesn't even, is not executed anymore? He's like, no. Will he be able to do maybe one of the things I started with the sharks? Well, no, you can only continue what I taught you because some stuff I started. But there's other things that he and the other people out there can pick up and do. But it's a lot of work. And it's a lot. I was watching the other day, it was a TED Talk that somebody was talking, and the word really struck me correctly. It's a lot of grit. There's a lot of hard choices, and there's a lot of grit that people need to put into this. And is the part that maybe we ourselves do a disservice when we are on the social media. That's why I try to explain people, it's like everybody, we post the picture with the empty reel for the exploration, but we don't post the 30, 40, 60, 70 times that we hiked across the island in knee-deep water swamp, eaten by the mosquitoes, macheting your way to arrive to a swamp hole that had no leading. Right, so then you find the cavers, I want to be a cave explorer. It's like, well, it starts from your computer at home. Then it continues. We're going with the GPS, with, you know, through the forest. And then it continues when you go, no, 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 no. And every time it's a no, you go, okay, back to the drawing board. I'm going to try this again.
And it's the same with the sharks, isn't it? So you've you know, that's years and years and years of study, and, you know, things maybe not going how you plan them, and learning their behaviors and how they interact with you. It's not, you know, you can't just jump in the water and sit down in a chainmail suit and start stroking their heads, can you?
Correct. It's a relationship. So where the other one is that this is a relationship. You don't build a relationship on your first date, at least not the people my generation. Nowadays, apparently you swipe left or you swipe right, but
apparently so, yeah.
But, you know, if anyone that has been in a meaningful relationship, if you remember, say, oh, remember our first date, or remember the first time we met. Some people, the first time they met, they didn't even like each other. Right? You hear the stories of this stuff. It's like, oh, the first time I met my husband, I thought it was an absolute, like, contrary to anything I wanted to be with. Yeah. Yes, there was the story, you know, love at first sight. And so it's the same thing with sharks. It's a relationship. I see a lot of people that I call them, you know, they helicopter in for 2 weeks and take the pictures with the sharks, doing maybe stroking them or riding them, or, you know, being next to them. And they're like, oh, I have you. And they're like, oh, I have this amazing relationship. It's like, no, you have a photographer that capture someone. You don't have that relationship. So a lot of people ask me, well, how do I go to do what you do? And my first answer is, you have to move where there are sharks. What a concept. But you have to be where the sharks are. And if you really want to learn, from the heart, not for the Instagram picture, not for the Facebook post, if you really want to know, learn about sharks, you have to put time, repetition. You have to understand these animals. They have to come to understand you. And for each species is different. So one size does not fit all. So don't helicopter from one shark to the other, displaying the same behavior, the same kind of interaction, because it's not going to work.
I find it absolutely fascinating that you ended up in the Bahamas by accident, and you didn't set out to do this with sharks. You just did a dive and they were there. And you obviously you had a love of the wildlife and the ocean and everything in it anyway, but you didn't set out to be a shark. I think you call yourself a shark listener. Is that?
Listener, that's my name. No, I mean, there was a gentleman here called Ben Rose, who is my inspiration, my mentor. He had started this basic interaction with the sharks through the shark feeding. And when I saw him, we started to basically work together. And then he thought I had a gift with the sharks. And so like in 96, it was like, you know, you're really, really gifted with these animals. And so that's how it started. But the shark listener is because a lot of people call me the shark whisperer. And I don't like the whisper because in a certain way, I know it's beautiful to certain people, but to me, it implies that I'm telling the sharks something. I'm whispering to them, oh, do this or don't do that. But the thing is, I'm not telling the shark anything. What I'm doing is observing the shark and I'm listening to them because they speak a language. It's not verbal, but it's their language, is the body language, is the movement language, is the energy language, right? And when I listen to their language, then I adapt my behavior to them, not the other way around. I don't go in the water expecting the sharks to do what I want them to do. I go in the water and I adapt myself to their day, to their mood, to their energy. That's the reason why when people come here to film and they're like, this is our shot list and we want to do this. And it's just like, I'll tell you what, I'll guarantee you, me, the water, and perhaps the sharks. Then everything else will be built on a day-to-day relationship. So when we, like some people, like I just did a Blue Planet Live. When they came, we spent 3 days filming. Because I said, these are animals that do what they do. And I work with them in synchronicity with them, but it's a true respectful way of how they are. It's not just check the box, so we need to do this. It's like, no, it's going to be a relationship. I compare it to having a cat. not of a big cat person, more of a giant dog person. They're like, very similar to sharks. But cats, from what I hear from people, you can have 2 or 3 cats, and you can have the one that is absolutely super cuddly, and you can have the one that sometimes comes in your lap when he or she deems it that it's okay to come in your lap. And if you start stroking the cat, it can decide, no, I don't want to sit in your lap, I'll stay here a while longer. And there are cats that even within these people that are so loving and all that decide that they don't want to be in your lap at all. They just live in the house. They're okay. They'll come, they'll brush by your leg. So sharks do the same. There's the sharks that just like to brush by my leg. So they'll swim by and I give them a pet. They're the sharks that like to come in my lap. They decide when and how. They decide how long they're going to stay. And then there's those sharks that I know for sure that every time they see me, more or less, they will come in my lap. So we have this different kind of relationship. But it's a relationship dictated on the understanding that it's on the animal's terms, patience, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And kind of like a mutual respect. That's just why I say a listener.
I was going to say mutual respect, because I guess that although you're observing them and how they behave, they're observing you and how you behave.
Correct.
So when they trust you, which obviously clearly a lot of them do, certainly in where you go now and where you predominantly dive, they know you and your behavior. So it's a two-way thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And they do trust me, because this is a wild creature that is resting on the ocean floor in my lap. And that is an extremely vulnerable position for an animal to put itself into. Right? So it's like, oh yeah, I'll try. But in that moment, through the time that we spent together and how many times this has happened, they've realized that it's a safe place to be.
Yeah.
And when sometimes, like, for example, we were doing a DNA research study. And on the first day, I was like, okay, I'm going to put the shark to sleep. And then you two will measure the shark. This is like many, many years back. 15, 16, 18 years back. And then I had 2 people to measure the shark while she was asleep, and then someone to prickle a little bit of DNA. And in my inexperience, obviously, I put the shark to sleep. Somebody was taking the video. Obviously, we wanted to document all of this. And the people came in to measure, and the third person came in the middle to take the DNA. Well, all of a sudden, the shark was with me here, 1 person here, 3 people here. She left. She was like, and immediately took off, to which I was like, you're right. I'm sorry. We just surrounded you.
Yeah.
So we just you put yourself into this vulnerable position. All of a sudden, we just surrounded you. So we put it in a very uncomfortable position. So then we changed me measuring DNA video. And all of a sudden, the shark has 1.5 place that it was completely open. And she stayed. All the sharks that we put to sleep stayed. That is where they decide, right? And they trust me that in that moment is going to be okay. Similar when they trust me to remove their hooks.
Yeah.
Painful procedure, but they actually allow me by coming back. I remove the hook, or I move the hook, and they're like, oh, that hurts. Obviously, no animal sits there going like, yeah, that's going to get better. So they'll swim away, but then come back. And let me try again. Swim away, and then come back. And let me try again. Swim away, watching that, being able to witness that an animal which hurts trying to remove the hook will then take a turn and come back and allow me to try. Some animals allow me to try for 30 to 40 minutes continuously.
See, that's fascinating. I mean, that must be incredible to be part of that and know that creature is seeking you to help it. So it's got that intelligence to know that Christina's there. She's going to help me. She's going to get my hook out and it's going to go. And I mean, you've got a huge collection of hooks, haven't you?
Yeah. So I have hundreds of them, over 300 hooks.
Wow.
But
so
yeah.
that's 400 hooks you've got out of 300 sharks. And most of those have come to find you to get that interaction from you and saying, help me.
Yeah, not 300 hooks out of 300 sharks. Chances are I have like a dozen hooks out of the same shark, because sharks will be sharks. So if you go fishing, they'll come and try to catch your bait. But the interesting part is I have a core of 20 to 25 sharks that I know I name them. I have all their physical characteristics. We take ID pictures. I have like a full folder, of the usual sharks. But once I start removing hooks, there are sharks that I never seen before, or that I've seen on the reef but don't come on the interactive dive, and only when they have the hooks come into the dive. There's a specific one. His name is Black Spot. Is a male, has like a black eye, just as it has a patch instead of having the traditional Caribbean reef shark cat eye. And he lives 200-300 yards next to where the interaction happens, but he never comes on the interaction. The day he has a hooks, he comes on the dive and comes in towards me. Once I remove the hook, he's gone.
But they must communicate then. There must be a communication going on between them so that they know that that's what you do.
Yeah, it could be a hormonal communication, like a secretion, something, the way they agitate as I remove the hook. Obviously, not all hook removals are nice and gentle because I have to extract the, out of the flesh. And so maybe that movement. But this guy specifically, he only shows up when he has a hook. When he doesn't have a hook, he doesn't come in, even if there's commotion while I'm removing hooks. So for me, that is beyond just the communication. There's also memory retention, which Dr. Eugenie Clark approved back in 1957.
Well, that's. I mean, you touched on his name, Black Spot. So you've got a 25, 30 core sharks, you said. So, and they've all got names. Just don't list them all, but you must have some special names there that you've given, and your favourite ones. But also their personalities. They must all have different personalities. I've got 2 dogs, and they're very, very similar. They look the same, but they're very, very different.
Absolutely. So I have 3, and they're like 3 totally different dogs, also depending on their background, right? They're rescues, but one was rescued at a middle age and one was rescued as a puppy. And I watched the 2 of them, and it's just 2 absolutely totally different dogs. But yes, sharks, one of my favorite is Grandma. She takes the name from the fact that she has a light gray. And I'm talking about, when I talk about their color, is the one that we see down underwater, not on the surface, not the real color, is the one that I want people to connect with. So a lot of my work is to connect people to the sharks I work with so that they may feel something for these animals and then transfer that to all the other sharks out there. So realize the sharks are creatures with memory, with feelings and all that. So Grandma has a lighter gray color on the head and is a very gentle nature. So when I say gentle nature, is some sharks, some Caribbean reef sharks, and people have seen Caribbean reef sharks do that. Some of them are very zippy. They're like zip, 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 zip. Grandma is always just like very nice and very slow and very gentle. So the light gray and her behavior gave her the name Grandma. Some sharks have a name only because of their physical characteristics. So Stumpy. Stumpy is my other favorite girl. She's approaching 2.10 meters. Wow. This is a pretty big Caribbean reef shark. And she has a piece of her upper caudal, so the top of her fin on the back, the tail, missing. So I call her Stumpy because she has a little stump there. The other one that I call only by that is called Crook. Both of her fins, one is bent this way and the other one has a dent right in here. Okay. So both of her fins, when you see them coming swimming, they're not the perfect shark fins, they're a little bit crooked. So her name is Crook. Peggy has that name because one of her pectoral fins is missing the traditional tip. So Peggy. So they have kind of like these names, but their personality is very different. And 2 of my most famous personality girls are Track and Vulcan. When Vulcan and Track showed up together about 5 years ago, they were in about the 4-foot range. So a little bit over a meter, meter and a half. And they appeared together. And the reason why I call them like that, Vulcan, I actually named after the British fighter jet.
Oh, well, the big wings.
The big wings, but because she also had like a very, very pointy bit. So instead of being out like this, it was out and pointy, like the wingtip of a Vulcan jet fighter. And then everybody thought that I called it Vulcan because, live long and prosper. So it was kind of like, I just called the other girl Track. Vulcan and Trek showed up together. They grew together, but then their personalities as they adapted to the dive change. So Vulcan is stayed shy, and she stays on the outer skirt of the dive, comes in a little bit, but not much. And Trek has become absolutely like boss lady. She is just in your face all the time. She'll come and visit you underneath the boat. You're swimming with divers. She'll follow you for the entire dive. And so two sharks that showed up at the same time, same size, most likely same age. And then with time developed these two different personalities. And it was the perfect timeline to watch that, because all the other sharks maybe came in at different times, so you cannot really compare. But now you have two sharks that showed up at the same time with the same distinct behavior, which is usually very cautious, like, what's going on there?
Yeah.
Should I approach? And then as they learn, one assumed a certain behavior and the other one assumed a different behavior.
It's crazy. I mean, it just shows you that you know, these are wild animals, aren't they? So like you say, you're not getting them to do anything. They got their own personalities, they do their own thing, and it's all done on their own terms. But I think it shows the perception of sharks, as we know, is wrong. These animals, you know, they're not mass killers, and they don't kill lots of people. Some of the figures, I gave you some earlier, didn't I? That
I love that. Please go ahead and share.
Yeah. So there's only 2 people in 2019 that were killed by sharks in the whole of the world. So globally, just 2 people. The average is 4 people. So it's only 4 people. And so some of the stats that I've got are cows. 20 people a year are killed by cows. But we don't avoid those, do we? You know, a lot of us walk through fields and see the cows. And so one of the other ones is snails. 10,000 people a year.
How do people get killed by snails? I really would like to know that. Poison?
Yeah, no, it's a freshwater snail, and it carries a bacteria. And people are drinking in these, you know, countries that aren't as well off as us, in the sort of poverty-stricken countries. They're drinking this fresh water with bacteria, and it kills 10,000 people a year. Just little freshwater snails.
Wow.
You know, the likelihood of getting killed by one of those is far greater than a shark, but people still drink that water.
Yeah.
And
the one, I'm a left-handed person. I like 7,000 people.
Or 7,500 people, I think it is, die each year. Left-handed people using right-handed equipment. It's crazy, isn't it? But will that stop people using right-handed equipment? You're left-handed. Do you use right-handed equipment from time to time?
Some of them, they're only right-handed, so kind of like adapt and move around and yes, work with what I have.
Yeah. So I mean, vending machines. 13 people a year are killed by vending machines. I guess it falls on top of them.
I think those people also have some anger management issues. But
yeah, probably banging on it and it's fallen back and hit them. So that's what I mean. The perception of sharks is wrong, really. And I think what you do, and if anybody looks on YouTube or looks at your website, you know, you'll see that there isn't. And here we go. We've got your website there. So you'll see that they aren't like that at all. And you're trying to change that perception, aren't you? And I think you're doing it very successfully.
I think one of the things we need to point out that is actually making the sharks appear so bad, and I was trying to use this example the other day with other people, is the amount of attention that a shark attack receives. So provided that nobody, me included, will like to actually die of such what appears to be, it's a violent death. It's not obviously a good death, but it could be as violent as a car crash or falling off a mountain or anything like that. But maybe it's the concept of being devoured that really scares people, right? But provided that respectfully to the people that have died and to their families, it is a bad loss. It's terrible. If we put attention to the attack, let's say we put 3 minutes media on the attack, right? So for 3 minutes, it will talk about the circumstances of the attack. But then what I would like the media to do is interview every single person that to the 24 hours leading to the attack on the same beach, not in the world, on the same beach, when swimming, surfing, paddleboarding, snorkeling, whatever, and give them 3 minutes to talk about how they went, oh, I was in the beach 10 minutes before this person, and I stopped for 10 minutes. I went 100 yards offshore, and I came back in. We will figure it out very quickly that if you interview those people leading up to a time for 24 hours or 6 hours, if you want to do, you would have several hours of interview, and then you have 3 minutes on the attack. So then the numbers will be very much different. They were making an example of tornadoes kill more people, for example, than drowning. And the numbers were absolutely the opposite. And then asthma. It's like, what kills more people? And drowning and asthma were absolutely underestimated versus tornadoes and I think it was tornadoes and hurricanes. And it's because when the tornadoes goes through a town is media. When is the last time that the media is concentrated on the thousands of people that died of asthma attack, right? If every day somebody said, oh, this person died of asthma attack, this person died of asthma, this person died of asthma. Let's bring it to an even bigger issue, right? We concentrate on these animals. Like, when is the last time we actually hear, oh, this person died of poverty, this person died of poverty, this person died of poverty. And not to take away from the victims, but the numbers in comparison are insignificant. And incidents between animals and humans are unfortunately bound to happen, but it's part of being in nature. But the infinitesimal part of how a shark attack can happen on a human interaction, it shouldn't even almost be on the news.
Well, there was actually 16 reported attacks globally last year. 2 people died, but 12 people were killed. Not the reported incidents, but 12 people were killed by ants. Where was the report on that?
Right. And hopefully they shouldn't do those reports, because they will make the poor ants and everybody will poison them. What I'm trying to say is there is a risk, and it's inherent. How many people die of car accidents? The Bahamas, bless their hearts, like they say in the United States, they're not the best drivers in the world.
No.
I had people telling me, oh, be careful out there. And I was like, you don't understand. I'm more frightened to go to the food store in my car than while diving with sharks or going cave exploring. The most dangerous part is driving to the cave. We have an average, this is a 40,000 people island. We have an average of, depending on the year, between 30 to 50 car fatalities.
Wow.
We're surrounded by sharks. We have bull sharks in the canals. We have the Caribbean reef sharks with the tiger sharks, the great hammerheads, the oceanic whitetail, the within shoreline.
Yeah.
Right? We have 30 to 50 car fatalities, and in a country that is ocean country, shark sanctuary, shark capital diving of the world, how many divers die in a year of shark bites, right? So just even those numbers, bring it out to the island. Yeah. How many people die of shark attack in the Bahamas? I think to this day, unfortunately, we had 2 fatalities.
That's not a lot, though, is it?
Not in a capital, shark diving capital of the world, where on average, each company can put in the water up to about 10,000 divers with sharks in a year, depending on the size of the company.
Wow. So that's what I mean. So you're sort of single-handedly trying to change the perception of sharks and how nice they actually are, for want of a better word, but also how vital they are to our ecosystems and the reefs and the oceans themselves. They're vital, aren't they?
Absolutely. The sharks fit in all the roles, from apex predator through mesopredators. The only thing that technically you don't have is a vegetarian shark, so you don't have a grazing shark. You have some filter feeders like the whale sharks and the basking shark, for example. You have sharks in all the oceans of the world. The only place that has not yet as per Dr. Sylvia Earle words, discovered is Antarctica, right?
Okay.
So the only place where they haven't found sharks yet. I love when she says that like that. But there's sharks in all the oceans of the world, in every ecosystem, and in some areas up into the fresh water as well. And we need sharks because as balancer, they keep there. A lot of them are cleaners. They don't go after the healthiest and the biggest. They go after the weak, the dead, the decayed. I mean, most of the footage that we see out there when there's a gathering of sharks, how many footage have we seen of sharks chomping down on the carcass of a whale?
Yeah.
They're there to clean. The unfortunate part is what we don't realize is they also keep the rest of the reef healthy. And as a lot of nations still like fish independent, we don't realize that we need the sharks to keep fisheries healthy, to keep us healthy. Removing sharks could cause detrimental effects. Now, we don't know all of the effects. What we, and when I say we, is the scientists, the activists, the people that want to protect sharks, the divers, is what we don't want to arrive is to the day that we won't have the sharks, see those effects and go, and now what?
Yeah, and I mean, we're killing everybody. It's well reported. We're killing 100 million sharks a year, aren't we?
Oh, yes.
You know, that's just, well, I can't even comprehend that kind of figure, to be honest.
There are some pictures out there. You can Google, shark market Hong Kong, and the piles and piles and piles of sharks in a single day in a shark market.
It's terrible, isn't it?
It's thousands of sharks per day.
Well, I don't want to dwell on that too much. I want to sort of, it's a more of a positive thing, isn't it? For obviously what you're doing and the way you're doing it. So one of the things I know you do, obviously after having spent 25, 26 years and studying them, doing all of this research, you actually do, among many other things, a shark handling course, don't you? Which as soon as lockdown's over and we can fly, that's got to be one of the top things on my bucket list to do, is come and have a course on how to handle a shark.
I do a shark handling course specifically with the Caribbean reef sharks. But as we do this, what I try to do is also try to open people's mind into shark behavior. So the shark handling course is like 3 days, and we spend like half a day, I can say in the classroom, but I want to put people off, but we shark talk. Right? Yeah. So we talk about shark biology for those that don't really know shark biology. And it's very generalized because with 522 species of sharks, it's hard to cover everyone's shark biology. Yeah. Generalized information, shark senses, so shark reproductive, and then shark conservation. So why are sharks in such dire need of our protection? And then I go through shark behavior. And then I take it down to shark Caribbean behavior. And then we go in the water and you experience this one-on-one with me. So we wear a protective suit. I call it the beekeeper suit, right? Yeah. If you sit on the grass watching the bees, you're not going to wear the suit. If you go interact with the sharks, you will wear the suit.
Yeah.
And with the suit, we go down there and through steps and behavioral, like goals that I give to people. Not like really call them goals, but it's okay, we're going to do this. You need to do this. We're going to do that. I read both my student. This is one-on-one, so it's super special. It's just you and me with the sharks and a video person taking video of everything we're doing.
Sign me up.
And I watch you, because I know my sharks. I watch you, and then through watching you, I coach you into changing your mindset and then changing your behavior, to the point that I had people that told me that doing that course even changed the way they had a mindset about things in life.
Oh, wow.
So I do an extensive interview. I ask people, where they come from, their background. And then so when I teach, I try to relate back to something they're familiar with. And that actually goes, all of a sudden goes, crick, and they're like, oh, wow, I never thought of that way. And so the sharks are the sharks. They will do their behavior. What I teach the people is you need to listen to the sharks. And in the process, a lot of them also learn to listen to themselves. Yeah. It's actually a very great experience. I've forged some of the most amazing friendship through this course.
Yeah.
It is, I think, and for me, it's extremely rewarding to watch the people transform from the first day to the last day. And I'm not really good on land. I can't really read personalities on land, but put you in the water down there with the sharks and I watch you. I can read very much your personalities, the mental blocks. Is really interesting. I can't do it on land. I'm actually a very trustworthy person, but on the water I can see what are your goals, where your mindset is, and I can see the discrepancy between what you say and your actions.
Yeah.
It's kind of, for me, it's very amazing because it creates really a relationship with these students that then become friends that then I talk to through the years, just because it forges something that is beyond just the sharks. It becomes the sharks and them and then us. And it's just, so it's a 3-day course that I teach. That is, I call it.
You do. I mean, what we got down the bottom there is all the courses, or not all the courses you do, just some of the courses that you do. You also do a shark experience, don't you? So it's not a 3-day course. It's just an experience. I'm going to do the course. I don't want the experience. I want the
experience is. So for the certified divers, this will be very easy to understand. The experience, I call it's like the Discover Scuba Diving. Yeah. The first 1-day experience that you did on the resort courses. So you were somewhere on vacation, somebody came to your lounge and said, you want to try this? You went on the pool, they kind of told you a couple of things and you went diving, you completely came out in awe of diving and somebody says, do you remember anything you did in the pool? You go like, no. So the experience, if obviously it's a financial choice sometimes as well as a time choice. And what it does is still the full, I call it shark yourself. It's the experience of shark yourself. One of the few places in the world where somebody will say, no, reach out and connect with the sharks. Reach out and touch the sharks. Reach out and feel them and understand them. So you still will receive that part. What it's missing is obviously all the other puzzle pieces and a little bit more of the thought process through it and some of the barriers dropping that the course brings in. But the experience is still phenomenal from the one-on-one with the sharks. But if somebody said, are all the blanks filled in, is with the experiences, something is going to be missing because there's a process that obviously we fail to complete, which will be in the course, the open water course. So now I'm not only holding your hand while we're scuba diving and we go up slowly together in the open water course, I actually teach you why we're going up slowly and why you need to stop and know how to stop. So that's a little bit the difference, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess most of the people that do the 3-day course are either really interested and fascinated by sharks or have a fear of sharks, I guess, and want to overcome the fear. Mostly
is usually I would say 90% is that progressive. I was afraid of sharks. I became a scuba diver. I saw sharks. I've been swimming with sharks. This becomes like the apex of my experience. Now I really want to engulf myself in sharks. Few, like a 10%, is I still have a little bit of fear of sharks. That's where I want to do this course. But I receive more requests for courses than I receive for experiences. And
I'm sure
there's a huge discrepancy between the two of them.
Well, I think it's because you, like we said earlier, and you know, I don't want to sort of label you, but you are an expert. You know, you can't avoid it. You are an expert. You can see that with everything that you do. So people will come to you for that help of getting over fears, and you did have that with Will Smith, didn't you? You got to meet the Fresh Prince.
I did. Will Smith had one of, and I was making an example earlier on. But Will Smith had what I call the traditional fear of sharks, which was not founded by a true life experience, nor it was founded by a true position in his life. I also worked with Mick Fanning. Mind you, Mick Fanning did a much longer road into like overcoming his fear and understanding and becoming actually a very much a ambassador for sharks and shark conservation. But Mick Fanning, who is a famous Australian surfer, came more to known. Again, here we go. 2 decades of surfing, and only the surfing world really knew about Mick Fanning. The day the great white splash against his board, media made such a big thing that Mick Fanning became basically notoriety all over the world overnight. But nobody took the time to say, wait a minute, he was in the ocean for 20 years and never really had something like that. So again, proportion of the media. But Mick Fanning has founded a fear. If I am a surfer, if I am a kayaker, if I am a paddleboarder, and I don't want to use this to instill fear, but I'm in an area where I'm putting myself in a position that could become of interest of some predatory sharks. And again, we need to go back. How many predatory sharks are there? There are surface hunters, right? Where am I? Because if I'm doing this in England, chances are I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
Chances are the only risk is I may be knocked off my board by a basking shark.
I was going to say, in the UK though, we've got almost 40 species of shark that swim around the UK, from blue sharks, which are most amazing looking sharks with the colour and their long, thin, sleek bodies. You've got the basking sharks. You've got thresher sharks.
Yes.
There's lots around the UK, and most people think we don't have them.
But you don't have those predatory sharks that might be attracted by a surfboard or a paddleboard. Mm-hmm. So first of all, what I'm trying to say is, if you are in that position, in the place where there might be a predatory sharks that might be attracted by that, there is a basic fear that you should have, which is called knowledge and understanding and a little bit of acceptance, and say, well, today the visibility is really bad, the turbulence is really high. I know in this area there's quite a few tigers, or, oh, the turtles are coming to shore to mate. Maybe I will not just go in the same area because this is a place, right? So I had a lot of people telling me, well, once you're on the surface, you're automatically food. And I'm like, no. You need to think about which sharks. If I'm on the surface snorkeling over nerve sharks, the chances are I may actually be perceived as a predator.
Okay.
If I am on the surface snorkeling with Caribbean reef sharks, chances are they'll be very sketchy of my presence. Yes, if I'm on the surface snorkeling, there's a tiger shark, because they eat turtles on the surface, it might trigger an inquisitive behavior. It doesn't right away trigger an attack, but it might trigger an inquisitive behavior, thinking, is that food? Should I investigate? And there's a lot of thinking into the sharks. So Will Smith's fear was, I call it unfounded, because he'd never been in that position. Right? Mick Fanning fear, it is a legitimate fear.
Yeah.
What we worked on is not making sure that it will not turn into a phobia. Will Smith was a different approach, which is through a little bit of knowledge and understanding, and downsizing sharks from monsters and jaws, snapping at the end of nerve ending, like someone described it to me the other day. Somebody wrote to me, they said, sharks don't think with their brain, they think with their mouth. And I'm like, well, no, they have a brain. They actually think with their brain. But that was a perception. That is a perception. Somebody on Twitter, sharks don't think with their jaws, they think with their brain. They don't think with their brain, they think with their jaws. And it's like, no. It was to rationalize what his fear was triggered by. Once we broke down sharks to an animal, to a perceiving creatures, to a capable of making decision, to capable of swimming out to people circling all around you and just paying no attention whatsoever, then also the fear kind of like dropped. And then he jumped in the water. And when he saw the sharks, they're like, well, they're kind of ignoring me. Like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the perception, isn't it?
You're not food. They don't care. They can definitely see who you are, what you are. And so it's just like, wow, they're kind of like avoiding me. I'm like, yes, they do.
So after he got over his fear and became Will Smith again, was he as cool as I hope he is?
He's a very, very nice person. Considered this is one of the most recognized men on this planet. You wouldn't be surprised if something got to his ego. Yeah. That is one of the kindest person of that stature that I've met. There's absolutely, at the end of the day, again, is unfortunately, maybe we do that with stars, right? We put myths on them like we do. Yeah. But at the end of the day, they're human beings, and they have those basic desires of communication, of being appreciated, of being, maybe they love being famous, but at the end of the day, they are like us, right? Yeah. They want this family safe, want to make a healthy environment, want not to be afraid of certain things, and a very, very nice, down-to-earth person.
It's a shame Carlton wasn't there as well. That would have been quite funny. The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. That might have been quite amusing. So, do you ever get criticised for touching the sharks? Because obviously we know, and everybody goes on about don't do this, don't do that. But I think you clearly are showing that the sharks come to you for that interaction, and so that kind of goes out the window as far as I'm concerned. You're making a positive impact there for everybody to see, that they're seeking you, they're coming to you for you to touch them.
Yes, I am the end receiving of quite a lot of criticism. Now, if I would have to percentage it, I'm not really sure, because
But even still now, do you get it?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes, I receive different kind of criticism. The first one is don't touch wildlife because Patty said so. So nobody should touch because that's what the agency says. Or the other one is, well, it's stupid that you risk your life trying to remove hooks because you can just let the hook rust. So there's that part. And some of it is, oh, if you do this, then other people will go ahead and do that, and you're causing problems for everyone else. And it's like, well, if I watch somebody crossing the Grand Canyon over a tightrope and it doesn't say, disclaimer, I'm actually coming from a family of the circus and we've been doing this for the last 6 generations. If I try to do the same thing, it's not the person's responsibility. So people by now should, at least if they see this, or you have to do a research a little bit to understand that I'm professional, I'm wearing protection. There are a certain set of procedures, but I do receive quite a lot of negativity on the touch itself. I actually more from Europe and a ton from the UK.
Really?
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's just a generalized concept, don't touch.
I think it comes back to that thing again. It's perception, and as we said right at the start, this isn't an overnight thing. You've been doing this for 25, 26 years. It's not.
Yeah.
So that perception, they're just looking at one video maybe of you touching a shark and going, well, you shouldn't do that, but they're not looking at the past 25 years.
And the work and what that touching the shark has brought, like shark tourism to the Bahamas declaring the Bahamas a shark sanctuary, where there's no export, no lending, no killing, no tournament of sharks, never mind shark feeding or anything like that. So some people think, well, you shouldn't have to work with sharks, feed sharks in order to protect sharks. And it's like, I wish that was true, but unfortunately, this is not true. What we're trying to do is we need to give a value to live sharks, right, rather than dead sharks. So when through the program that I do is, well, if every day you can go in the water with the same 20 sharks, you can take your boat out here and go swimming with your divers with the same 20 sharks, or you can take them out of the water at $1,000 a piece. You make $20,000. Some people might say, well, I want the $20,000 now, but at the end of the day, think about it. For the rest of your life, and the one of your children and everyone else involved, you can take groups of people here to be in the water with these sharks, because the sharks will be there also for all the other divers, not only my divers. It's the open ocean, right? So they're available there for everyone on a repetitive income. So let's go away from the fact that we need to protect them and save them for the environment, for our survival. Let's give day to day, right? Push come to shove. Is either immediately $20,000 or is an average of $40,000 a year for the rest of the years that you want to dedicate to this. And that is where shark tourism becomes important. It still needs to be done with guidelines. So that's the reason why if people were to take a little bit of time, they will see how I do it and why I do it and how much training and how, certain rules, so no, it's not true that all shark tourism is beneficial to the shark. There are some shark tourism that are really terrible for the sharks. But that is said for everything. There's good dog owners. But that's
still a positive move, isn't it? And it has a positive impact. Having shark tourism and ecotourism is still a positive move, and it's very different to just even a couple of years ago. That, you know, people's perception is beginning to change through people like yourself, and it's becoming more apparent that we need to do more. And I think that can only be a good thing. And what the Bahamas have done, making it a shark tourist area and a marine reserve, there's lots more of that going on. So do you have hope that we are making the right moves as we continue to do that?
I have small hopes. They come in terms of messages. They come in terms of like screenshots of conversation from people. They come in through people from there's this phenomenal girl on Instagram that translates every one of my posts. She translates every single word in Russian, in Cyrillic language, and does posts with the entire spiel. I received messages from China where they translated all of that. So the message is being shared and expressed, and to my delight of, you know, 5 languages speaker person, translating all these languages that I could never dream to reach. I've done interviews with the TV channels in Georgia, for example, which is another language that even has an alphabet that I've never seen in my life before. But imagine the power of this outreach. So it is slowly changing. What I try to remind people is a lot of people out there, they don't know what they don't know. So use the language that is more in tune with those people. Use the cultural behavior that is more in tune with our culture. And remember, my grandmother always taught me, you capture more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Very true. Well, and you're not the only one out there. There's Ocean Ramsey. People have got negative thoughts about her. I only see it as a positive because it's bringing awareness to it. Madison Stewart, or Shark Girl Madison, she does the same sort of thing and brings awareness to sharks and writes about them and the plight of the sharks from finning and all sorts of things. So, I mean, there's a lot of positive people out there.
There's children out there that have created accounts to try to promote shark conservation. There's a scientists that are working into this. There's scientists that I work with, Hannah Mead, and they are, Elena Salim. They actually love what I do, although it is more tourism, because they say, well, you collect so much science data into your brain that is absolutely something that I, as a scientist, can't do because I'm in a lab or doing some research. So I become like the eyes, the brain, and the hands of sometimes other scientists. So there are amazing photographers out there. They're doing quite a lot for sharks, and they're bringing up the images. That's why I start also taking my own pictures. It's just surfacing a lot of the work I do through my own eyes. Artists. So let's not think about shark conservation, ocean conservation as just like one job. And this is like a call for everyone. It's like, well, I want to be involved. How do I do this? Well, you can use it in many ways. You can use some of your skills, right? It could be an accountant and use your skills to actually help a nonprofit. I'm just launching crazy ideas. You could be a graphic designer and help someone else actually design their message. Maybe they have a beautiful message, but they don't know how to transfer it. You're a graphic designer. Can you use your skills to say, hey, let me help you with that? Web designers, music producers, painters, anyone can actually pitch in sculptures. I've seen some of the most amazing sculptures. And one is actually from a UK artist, and he has this girl and the sharks. It's absolutely breathtaking. And all of them can send out this message. So I think that that is the important part, is that make sure that it's a unified message that comes out in all the different parts.
And I think there's different levels as well, because I think as a diver, I feel I've got a responsibility, and most divers do feel they've got a responsibility to do something for the ocean, whether it's just picking up litter every time you go out in a mesh bag or whatever. Well, a friend of mine is talking about doing a expedition next year. I'm not sure where and how it's going to all happen. And I'd love to go on it. And it's tagging sharks. So, you know, and being able to do that, I mean, how amazing would that be? Do you know what I mean? There's just another level up from just saying, I want to do something to help sharks. You're actually physically doing it.
Yeah, and it's called citizen science. So you go somewhere, you receive your time with sharks, and on top of that, you do something and learn something.
So obviously all of these things that you do, and it is absolutely amazing. I guess that's partly to do with why you were nominated or inducted into the Women's Hall of Fame, and quite rightly so. Is that fair to say?
Yes, and primarily I think the component that got me into the Women Diver Hall of Fame was the educational component of my work. So the outreach program, the local people education, the constant connection between all the work that I do to promote conservation. The Women Divers Hall of Fame is an amazing group of women that was first created to basically emphasize those women that had accomplished something in their life. So the first, let's say, batch of women that were inducted in 2000 was primarily women that had broke world records, were the first, were the deepest, were this. But every year, some people will say, well, there's also these women. What about this women? And so they realized they couldn't just do like a Hall of Fame and close the doors and say, well, these were the 200 women. They realized that every year, as time passed, more women will show up on the scene. And so now it's done on an induction promotion, like you submit a promotion, has quite a lot of criteria, and they actually moved away from the record, the first, the deepest. That might help a little bit. But the best part of this organization, when you're thinking you're entering into a group of A-type women, you might think, do I really want to do that? But you enter into some of the most generous, some of the most amazing, some of the most kind women. And when you come in, they go, welcome, you deserve this. This is amazing. Now, what can you do for everyone else? And that is the first thing that they ask you. Do you want to volunteer? You're going to do this. Can you do that? Can you help with this? And it's all about pushing it forward. So now you have this 283 A personality women, right, that are actually pushing forward. They're like the go-getters, the go-doers. They're just, our organization is super organized, and it's all on volunteering time.
And you must feel very proud.
I'm very honored. I'm very proud. I absolutely love what we call each other the Sea Sisters. I absolutely love this woman. I ended up being inducted with some of whom were my childhood and teen heroes.
Oh, wow.
I sat on the table and had dinner with Dr. Eugenie Clark. And when she first met me, I remember she met me and she said, and who are you? And I said, oh, my name is Cristina. Because I went up to Dr. Eugenie Clark and I said, Dr. Clark. I said, what an honor. I had my pin, so I recognized I was a Women Diver Hall of Fame. And she asked me, who are you? And I said, I'm Cristina. My name is Cristina Zenato. She grabbed my hand. I still remember. She put both her hands over my hand. She said, Cristina Zenato. She said, I always wanted to meet you.
Wow.
And so I sit at the table with these women that have paved. Now, they haven't even paved the road. I mean, they actually broke through the mountains before the road was even made, that allowed me to then become a scuba diver. The Dottie Fraser, the Dr. Sylvia Earle, they're like so amazing. I am proud. I'm honored. I'm speechless.
It's amazing, and I think is very well deserved. So like we said earlier, it is still a very male-dominated sport, and you've got the Women's Hall of Fame, Women Divers Hall of Fame there. How would you encourage more women to get involved then? I think there are more and more coming through now that and making a name for themselves. How do we encourage more women to get involved, do you think?
I think the first thing that we need to do is put more women out there. They are out there and they are doing the things, but then when it comes to, let's say, media and news, there's always, and no offense, but there's a prevalence to pick a white male as a representative for what is out there. So that causes quite a lot of issues, both on a women level, generalized women, and then on a generalized also minorities. So if I am either a minority woman or a minority even in male, and I look at what is the presence on TV, on the nature program, it's constantly it's white male, it also will deep down, like you said with the spider, something happened, but you keep watching and it's always the white guy, the white guy, the white guy, the white guy. And it's like, well, I'm sitting home and I am a minority male or a minority female or a female in general. I'm looking at that, I was like, oh, I guess, that's not really a field for me. I cannot really go there. So there's a beautiful organization. There's a huge group. It's called Girls That Scuba. It has 40,000 plus followers. And I encourage women to join that group on Facebook because they actually encourage girls, women to share their story and say, post, what's your story? And so the more we can see women out there, there's women with disabilities that people said, oh, you would never be able to do that, right? There's minority women. So, you would never do, this is not for you. So the more we can read the stories, the more we can realize that is an open field. Is it harder? Still, yes, it is. Are we breaking more glass ceilings? Absolutely. So put more women out there and inspire women to see that is a field that we can enter.
Yeah, I mean, Sarah, who set up Girls That Scuba, has done an amazing job, hasn't she? I mean, to have that amount of followers, obviously all of that's fantastic, but sharks aren't just your only passion, are they? Cave diving is also not maybe a passion, maybe an obsession. Is that fair to say?
That is a very good word. I thought you were going like, oh, maybe you like it. No, it's an obsession. Absolutely. Cave diving, sharks, is like two different worlds, two different absolute mindset in a way, although very similar in others. But yes, caves are an obsession for me, and more so in the last few years. I still enjoy my sharks and I love the sharks. But the sharks in themselves are protected, so I now want to protect where the sharks reproduce and where the sharks live. And then cave diving for me is an obsession as a individual, just because I absolutely love cave diving, but then how much intrinsically related they are to environment conservation, and that's where the obsession comes from.
Yeah, and that, I mean, it is linked to sharks as well, isn't it? So they're still there in the background.
Very much. And that is when so you need to understand, like I started here with the sharks, and I'm like, shark, protect the sharks. Okay, sharks are protected. And at the same time, I was doing caves protect the caves. But as I did more and more cave diving, I realized that I was actually traveling from the cave to the open ocean. And all of a sudden, it was just kind of like, well, these two things actually go like this. Yeah. Especially here in the Bahamas, where a cave can sit on land, but if you pollute over the cave, it will go through the soft rock called the limestone, the particles over your pollution, travel with the water, reach where the cave comes out from, sometimes in a lagoon, sometimes in a mangrove area, sometimes in the open ocean, which then will affect the corals, the plankton, the animals are actually all depend from these ecosystems. So they're so vitally interconnected. So it went from, I really love these two things, to these two things are really connected. And then this obsessive passion is like, we need to protect the whole.
Yeah, just need to protect the ocean.
Yeah, the whole of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're also a cave diving instructor as well?
Yes, I teach cave diving. Michael Menduno created the word technical diving when I became
fantastic man. Have you? He was on one of our episodes not so long ago, and amazing. He's such a cool dude.
Love Michael. He's absolutely. He's really, really kind, funny. His brain is like 10 times out there. I absolutely love Michael. But I became a cave diver before actually Michael created the word. So when people go, oh, you're a technical diver, I'm like, well, I'm a cave diver. So my passion is cave diving, taking safely people underground on the water. To do that, you have to have certain skills. which is certain gases, a certain gear configuration, certain tools. So I also had to acquire all of that. So I'm a rebreather instructor, advanced nitrox decompression, trimix, side mount, advanced side mount. But to me, they were just the tools to be able to bring the people safely into what is my passion, which is cave diving. But I think it's one of my favorite courses to teach, from cavern all the way to cave, whatever the people want to do on their journey.
Here's a tough one then. So if you could only choose sharks or caves, which one would it be?
You have to choose?
Yeah, you have to. Your life depends on it.
Well, my life depends on it. That's just what I picked here, because I have both sharks and caves and I don't have to go anywhere else.
So yeah, I mean, but if you had to choose one, but if you could only ever do one again, and it was the last dive you were ever going to do, would it be with your sharks, not the sharks, with your sharks, or in a nice big cave?
I would be, my last dive is with my sharks.
Yeah, good answer. I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours and hours, and there's so many more things that we can talk about, isn't there? There's just so many more. I'm already going to look at flights to the Bahamas because I need to get on the shark course. I've got to get on there. You know, like I say, I'm just so pleased that you came on to speak to me. And, you know, I'd love to speak to you again when we've got other things to talk about and more things to talk about. It's just fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Thank you so much for having me, Dive Line. Thank you for the Live Line podcast. And thank you for allowing me to express all of this. I mean, and yes, there's quite a lot, but to talk, we can talk more, can come back on in a year time, we can discuss more.
Well, we'll do one from the Bahamas.
Oh, then we could do a live one.
Yeah, do a live one from the Bahamas. There's a plan, eh?
There you go. They put that on the calendar.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes. And the last thing, I'll probably be speaking to you again actually in a few weeks. You're a speaker at the Scuba Digital Show.
Yes, I'm going to be speaking at the online digital scuba show, and I'm also an exhibitor. So both the availability for people to catch on with me while I'm on the floor.
Yeah, well, we're there as well. We're doing a load of spotlights for all the exhibitors. So yeah, we'll be there as well. So we'll probably catch up with you in a few weeks' time.
Excellent. Can't wait to see you guys.